makes custom hats. And so I just sent him, measure my head size, and we collaborate on designs, and then he ships them over.
How did you get hooked up with this guy in Indonesia?
He reached out to me on social media, like a few years ago. He was just like, "Hey man, you ever thought about wearing a hat on stage?" And I was like, "No, absolutely, I haven't." So we did. He made the first one, and I started wearing it. Actually, it was nice because then I have to worry about my hair. It's like if I have a bad hair day, if I don't want to mess with styling my hair, then I just throw a hat on.
It's like an underrated lifestyle change, like becoming a hat guy. There are like hat guys, and then there are non-hat guys.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't work for everybody. I'm glad it works for me.
Thankfully, you've kept your hair. Like I've done pretty well with my hair. Like not everybody can say that, but like, your hair has been like a defining characteristic of your. We're not using video. You kind of roll your eyes about, which I understand. You did roll your eyes a bit at that a little bit though.
Well, it's just that, no, it's just because it's true. And then as you get older, I mean, most people, their hair changes as you get older. And I've cut my hair, I've grown it out, I've cut it. And every time I cut it, some people are beside themselves over the fact that I cut my hair. But yeah, it's really interesting. So like the two of the things the three most important things that I've been known for in my career is my guitar playing, and my hair, and my age, and how young I was. And so, I still have one of those. It's like the hair isn't what it used to be. It's not super long, and maybe not as thick as it once was. And I'm certainly not as young as I once was, but I can still play guitar pretty good.
I feel like of the three, though, you probably kept the most important thing, and what should be the defining part of your career.
Yeah, certainly. I don't think anybody's really coming to see me just to see what I've done with my hair.
That must have been, I'm guessing, like, especially early on, to a certain extent, it was probably a little bit annoying that those other two factors were things that you felt like defined you, and you felt like were things that, No,
nothing. I'm going to tell you right now, there was nothing about any of it that was annoying to me. I was just glad people were paying attention and that people were interested in me and what I was doing. So like there was always those gotcha questions back when I was young. It was like, I remember I did an interview with a really huge publication, and this guy came to the House of Blues in Hollywood when we were playing there. He spent the whole day with me, like warming up to me and becoming my friend and loosening me up. And then he kept asking me, like, is there, what do you feel like you're missing out on? Like as a teenager, what do you feel like you're missing out on? And I kept saying nothing. Like, look at what I'm doing. I'm playing music for people. I'm touring the world. Like, I'm not missing out on anything. He just kept pressing me, and he was like, there's got to be something, man. There's got to be something that you wish that you could be back home doing, or something like that. And so the only thing I could even think of, because he kept pressing me, was, that I had just recently bought myself a new car, which I love cars. And so I was like, well, I kind of wish, it'd be nice to be home, being able to drive my car. And then he used that as an opportunity it was the only negative thing in the whole article. And he used that as this opportunity to like spin it as if like, I'm this amazing, wonder kid, child prodigy, but I'd rather be home driving my car, than out on the road doing what I'm doing. And it was like, okay, but it's really true. It's like anything that got me people interested in what I was doing. If it was my age, I mean, that's initially what, made most people curious, was the fact that I was so young and I was doing the music I was doing. And then it was up to me to carry the weight of that, and like to actually deliver beyond just being like, a sideshow. And so, but if the age got them in the door, then that's fine with me. And then it's up to me to retain them. And we've done that now, because we're celebrating the 30-year anniversary of my debut record this year. So
the car thing is really funny, because like that could apply to anybody.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not an age thing. It's like, I bought this expensive car. I like cars. It'd be nice to be home driving it. That has nothing to do with being like 18 or 15 or any other age. Like, anyone who's on tour as a musician can probably relate to that to a certain extent.
Yeah. Well, I think anybody I know is excited when they get a new car,
Yeah. That's really
Yeah,
funny. Yeah, I wonder if he was. It sounds like he was probably searching for something like specific that you like you didn't have because like clearly you were really happy. Like you were very much enjoying yourself. Like you were
absolutely.
living. I don't know if you had like and I don't know. This is something I've always kind of been curious about. Like just people who start a little a bit younger, in you in particular, whether you had any specific expectations or to a certain extent whether you were kind of just like going with the flow and seeing where things took you.
Yeah, there was no expectations on my behalf for sure. I don't know about the people who were invested in my success, but for me, it's like I was literally taking it one day at a time. I remember the day that we finished recording my first album and I handed it in to the record company. And I remember that feeling of like, okay, like this is out of my hands now. And I didn't know if people were going to embrace it, if they were going to reject it, if they would even care at all. Um, so no, I never had any kind of sense of entitlement, like I deserve this success or I'm destined for this success. You know, it was just kind of everything unfolded as you know as it did.
I was reading another interview that you did. I think kind of roughly around the upcoming tour and the re-record, and you were talking about your relationship with Irving Azoff, like like a legend at this point, probably a legend at the time also, but a remarkable part of this story of your story that I don't think a lot of people talk about is the amount of freedom that he bestowed upon not just you, but like someone of your age. Like not very rarely, it seems like granted to somebody with that kind of support structure around them.
Hmm. Yeah, well, he definitely gave me a creative license to just make whatever music I wanted to make, which I think is, I don't know. I mean, it's my experience, so it's only one I really know, but I don't know
Sure.
how common that is. You know, I feel like, especially a lot of times, like record companies sign artists back then. I don't know how it is now, but like, and they have this idea of what they think the artist should be or how they think their music should evolve or how they should be marketed and all of this stuff. And so there's a lot of like opinions and there's a lot of coercion and stuff like that that happens behind the scenes, and they're not always right. But none of that was happening. Irving was just like, hey, what kind of record are you going to make? And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he goes, well, I mean, you can make, he said, I don't care what you do. Like, you just go make the album you feel inspired to make. And he's like, I don't care if it's all instrumental record because I wasn't singing at the time. And he's like, I don't care if it's all instrumental, if it has vocals, just go make the music you feel inspired to make. And then he put me in touch with Jeff Aldrich, who was my A&R guy. And, the A&R people, that's an incredible talent in itself because their job is to facilitate, and to help connect you with the people, the producers, the songwriters, the collaborators, and their job to help you achieve your vision. And Jeff really facilitated that. He hooked me up with, the first people that he set me up with to write songs with were people that I've written songs with for the majority of my career.
Hmm.
That's how well it worked between me and them. So, but yeah, nobody was telling me to do this or do that. I wrote the songs I felt inspired to write. I made the record I felt inspired to make. And thankfully that helped me build this foundation, that's of this career that's going on 3 decades worth of, more than 3 decades of performing, but certainly 3 decades of recording music and touring off of those records.
Were you writing, or at least kind of toying around with the idea of writing prior to the record deal?
Oh yeah, I was already writing songs. I feel like, well, maybe not everybody is compelled to write songs, but I certainly was. My grandmother was a great poet, and so she taught me a lot about poetry. So I used to love to write little poems and stuff. And then when I learned how to play guitar, music is just instruments and poetry put together. So Um, it just felt like a natural progression for me was to write songs. And then my dad, he when I signed the deal, he was like, look, one of the things that makes you a real artist, like a true artist, is, being involved in the creative process and like writing your own songs. And plus, that's the business side of things as well. Because if you're always recording someone else's songs, then, that's an entirely different income stream that you're missing out on.
Obviously, with the blues, a big part of the tradition is playing standards and putting your own spin on it. So there's not, there's certainly like no expectation that you would have come out of the gate having had this album full of your own songs or co-writes.
Well, that was my expectation, for myself. Even when we were doing shows and I was playing in bars and we were doing 3 1-hour sets with 15-minute breaks, and getting paid very, very little. But that was like where I was really like, learning my chops and paying my dues, if you will. Even back then, we were doing original songs. And if we covered songs, we didn't do the standards. Like I always tried to cover obscure songs because then it gave the impression that we're not a cover band because we're not playing these songs that everybody's familiar with. So like even from the blues world, like I never played Stormy Monday ever in one of my shows, or Kansas City, or any Sweet Home Chicago. Like we never did any of that stuff. I really dug to try and find really great blues songs that were not like mainstream songs, so that people still felt like they were hearing like new material when they came to our shows when we were covering other people's stuff.
When you are writing your own songs, is that it's coming genuinely from a place of yourself, right?
Yeah, for sure. Now, there are songs like, that other people write that you can connect with. I mean, that's why people love music that aren't musicians, is because they connect with the song that somebody else has written. But even as an artist, like you can connect with someone else's song. It can be so good and speak to you so loudly that you're like, I got to record that song. There's nothing wrong with that either. But I do like the idea of like writing my own songs, telling my own stories. There's definitely a connection there for that. It makes it a little more personal.
What did you learn? I mean, specifically, obviously a long time ago, but what did you learn from your grandmother in terms of poetry?
I just read a bunch of her poems, and she wrote every day, and she would write poems on any scrap piece of paper that was laying around. So I don't know, stuff just sinks in, when you observe people doing things. When you're really young, you're like a sponge, and all of that stuff. And going to see all the concerts that I went to with my dad when I was little, all that stuff was just kind of soaking in, without me realizing it. And it was all going to help contribute to the path I was going to have.
I'm partially wondering, like, was her stuff, obviously, like, in some sense, all poetry is self-expression, but did it really feel personal in that way? Did it feel like a memoir? That it really was like very.
Well, a lot of her
personal?
stuff was she's pretty religious. She was very faithful, like in her practice, and a lot of it was that, but it was very personal in the sense that it was very revealing of how she saw life, and everything that she wrote was generally meant to be inspirational, which I think also contributes to my idea that I want to lift people up with the music and the songs that I write.
What made it clear in terms of the coverage that you're doing? What made it clear that like, these are the right people, and that they ended up being the people that you've been working with all these years?
Well, you just don't know until you try. I mean, and I've worked with other people more recently on the last like 4 records. I've kind of branched out and started writing with some different people. In addition, but you never know. I mean, the thing is, when you're dealing with creative people and it's collaboration, it's like there has to be chemistry, and you never know if that's going to exist until you try it. But if you tap into it, you really got to seize that moment, and you got to really like follow that through, And so, I mean, I've written with people and it just didn't work out, And then I've written with people and it was like we created magic, like really substantial stuff. And so that works. So you just keep going. I mean, as long as it's working.
Is there a sense in which it's like finding the right group of people to play live with?
Same thing. Yeah. I mean, just because it's like putting a football team together. You can have guys that on paper look like this would be incredible, and they get out there on the field and it just doesn't work, because the chemistry is just not there. Doesn't mean the talent's not there. It just means that thing that you can't see that happens between people that is really substantial just isn't there. And the same thing happens in any creative process and in any creative realm where there's talent and you're putting talent together. So yeah, you never know. You just have to roll the dice and you have a good idea and you say, okay, let's see what happens with that. But same thing, like from trying to hire a new person in my band for a position doesn't mean just they could be a great player. Doesn't mean they're the right player for my band, but you have to try them out and see.
It's that sort of difficult thing that you have to walk, especially in a creative field where it's like, oh, well, this is really working out, so I'm going to keep doing this. But also, well, yeah, I do need to mix things up. And a good way to mix things up is to bring some new blood into the equation.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's always great. I mean, bringing in a fresh approach to anything or a new set of eyes, or ears into a project, for sure, it can bring new life to it.
Yeah, which I mean, this must be like kind of a fascinating. I don't have you gone back into the studio yet to re-record the songs, or is that still something that's?
Oh, that's done. Yeah, that's done. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's coming out. I don't think we have the exact date yet. I'm thinking it's March of next year. So then, yeah, the new version of Ledbetter Heights, which is 30th anniversary version. We re-recorded every song, and but they're not. We didn't try and recreate the original. Some of the songs are somewhat faithful, but like they're never going to sound exactly the same because Noah's singing. On the first album we had Corey Sterling singing, and then he's no longer with us, and he actually just passed away recently. So there was no way we could ever recreate that original sound of that first record. So that kind of gave us permission to try different things with different songs. So we had some fun with it, and we kind of reimagined some of the songs and just added little tidbits to some others, not necessarily every song had a drastic change to it, but we had a lot of fun with it. And the intention was also to give the fans a new listening experience to an album that they've been familiar with for 30 years. So that's coming out in March, and we're doing this tour, and we're going to play the whole album live in concert, which we never even did back in the 90s when it first came out. We never played every song live. So that'll be cool. And, the show will be the whole Ledbetter Heights record, and then it will be, a bunch of songs that I pick off of other various albums, because just playing the Ledbetter Heights album isn't going to be enough music for a headline show. But we did this with the Trouble Is album on the 25th anniversary of my second record, and the tour was great. Almost every show was sold out. The fans loved it. We loved it. It's cool. I mean, it's great to celebrate this stuff, because my whole intention when I made my first album, and when I make every record that I make, is to try and create what I believe is timeless music, because I don't want people to, I never wanted to be a pop star. I wanted to be a timeless music maker. And that way people would be listening to my music for decades, for years to come, hopefully years after I'm gone. And so the idea that we're celebrating a record that's 30 years old, and we're doing a tour, and the fans are already, I mean, some of these shows have, the tickets are selling really quickly and really well. And so it just goes to show that it reinforces that even at that very young age, like that was my intention. And it shows that I think we accomplished what we set out to do.
I assume you're not, listening to your old records every single day, but when time comes maybe to tour, if you want to play an old song, you go back and listen. But your relationship with these songs must change pretty dramatically over the decades, especially when time comes to kind of go back and re-examine them.
Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. This album, for the most part, the meanings of the songs haven't changed. They've remained the same. And when I play them, every time I play them, like certain songs like Deja Voodoo, we've played a lot over the past 30 years because that was my first single. That song still means the same thing to me, and it still takes me back to the same place every time I play it. It teleports me back to the early days of my career, and which this whole experience of re-recording this album did that in a very vivid way because it brought up so many memories and of being in the studio and stuff. But it takes me back, and it puts me in a place of gratitude because I think about, how young I was, how little I knew about everything, and that the future was just a blank slate and I had no idea what to expect. And then I look at what I'm doing as I'm playing this song. I'm looking out at all these people and these smiling faces, and it's 30 years later and the house is still packed, and you know what I mean? And so other songs over the years, like here and there, that are more personal. Sometimes I'll write a song about a personal experience and I'll believe like, well, that's what this song is about. And then sometimes it can take on a completely different meaning because of a new experience that I've had, which has been kind of a trip. But on this record, that these songs still kind of ring true to their original form.
It's a testament, obviously, to you, but I'm guessing it's also a testament to kind of the infrastructure that you had around you, that you came out, that this first record came out in such a way that was so fully formed that you can go back 30 years later and still appreciate the music on there.
Yeah. Well, I still listen to, I mean, I don't go around like, blasting my own music all the time, but like when the stuff comes on the radio, which it still does, or, the other day, like my kids wanted to listen to some of my music. So we put some of it on. It's like, I still enjoy listening. I do enjoy listening to it because I never allowed myself to record anything that I didn't feel inspired to make. And I felt like I set the bar pretty high on my first record and of the standard of music I was going to make and put out. And I've tried to maintain that or exceed that. And so I feel like, and plus every record is just a reflection of who you are as an artist in that moment of time. And so they're just kind of like chapters in a book, and they're not chapters that I'm ashamed of at all. I'm still very much proud of all of them.
Do you feel, though, with 3 decades separation, that who you are, either as an artist or just as a person, has in any way changed dramatically?
I mean, not dramatically, but there has been an evolution of, just becoming, gaining experience and wisdom, I think, are the two biggest things. And that's about life across the board. I think that's the primary purpose that we're kind of all here for, is to gain experience and wisdom. But yeah, I mean, I've evolved as a player. I've evolved as a songwriter. I've evolved as a producer. The metrics are different now than they used to be, the measurements for success and all that stuff. But to me, at the end of the day, success is, I heard a guy say recently, he was in a band. I can't remember who he was. He was a 80s rock guy. And whoever's interviewing him asked him, like, are you disappointed that you never became an arena band? And he was like, you know what? Like, I've been able to support my music playing my family. I've been able to support my family playing music for the last 60 years of my life. And anytime you can pay your bills because you picked up an instrument, you've already won. You're successful. And so like, that's it. And then it's not even, for me, it's not the paying of the bills and supporting my family, but like the fans. Like we do a tour and we show up in a building and people are still walking through the door to see us do what we love to do. I mean, that's all the success that you need. That'll carry you through, the ups and downs of the recording industry, as long as you have that fan base. And we have an incredibly loyal fan base, one of the most ideal scenarios that any artist could ever probably think of, because they've been with me for 30 years.
And I think that there was probably, in a way, that there was power early on, especially like at such a young age, that there was power in not having expectations early on. That there wasn't, that kind of like external pressure, maybe in the same way.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe I was naive. I don't know. I was so young. I didn't know what to expect. But I think it was helpful. Plus, I've also I try not to get too attached to my own ideas, because it's often that my plan isn't the plan, and there's disappointment that can be attached to that. and nobody likes being disappointed. So I feel like if I just kind of like stop trying to control things and let things, be what they're supposed to be, and generally everybody seems to be pretty happy.
I think, and that's exactly what this, whoever it was, this 80s musician that you were talking about before, I think that's exactly what they were trying to get at, right? Is like, it's invariably going to be like a losing game to compare
Oh yeah,
your career to anybody else who came before, because no two careers are the same.
exactly. But the social media and all that stuff has just made that entire thing so much worse. I mean, that's all social media has turned into, is a constant like
Yep.
comparison. It's like, of what vacation is this person taking? Where is this person's photo? Like, does this person look better than me? Does this person have more followers than me? Did they get more likes than me on there? I mean, dude, you're not winning that game. And and why would you dismiss someone else's success? Like, you know what I mean? Everybody's success is significant. And it doesn't, the numbers don't matter. Numbers only matter to the people who are looking at the numbers. But if you can just allow yourself to be happy with the job that you're doing, if you're doing the best you can, and you're actually enjoying what you do, you're already winning, because there's so many people that don't get to do what they love to do.
I'm guessing that like the fact that you do get to do what you love to do and you have for so long, and you've got a family and you're living a pretty full life, has to a certain extent allowed you to disengage from a lot of those things.
Well, I feel like, yes, I mean, that could be said, but I also just realize it's just not good for people's mental health. Like, so I when I resisted social media for the longest time until it became something that like was just a fact of life, especially if you're.
Necessary evil. Yeah.
And I'm still not, like, there's so many people that are better at it than me, and it's because I don't engage with it constantly, and I'm just not wired like that, and that's okay. Like, I could sit here and I could compare numbers and engagement and stuff like that with those people, but I prefer the peace of mind that I get where I'm not concerned with that. And yes, it's easier for me to not be concerned with that because of where I'm at in my career. I don't know. All I can tell you is that in the very beginning stages of anybody that gets involved with social media as a platform for their work, you find yourself very quickly becoming consumed with that stuff, and you can lose yourself in it. And I was like, I don't want any part of that. So I just stopped looking at the numbers, and I just post. I post, whatever I feel compelled to post, just like I make the records I feel compelled to make. But I'm not trying to define myself by my social media presence. And I think some of the fans, I think, probably appreciate that.
Is there any usefulness for you, I guess, kind of like creatively or career wise, in listening to the feedback, whether it's like fans or reviews or anything else?
I mean, everybody has an opinion, and
Yeah.
so I mean, and I feel like I'm a good listener, but I also have lived a fortunate existence where at the end of the day, I get to make the decisions. So I think any good person in that position needs to be good at listening, needs to be good at considering all the facts or all the information that's presented, and use that as determining factors of how you move forward. And so I listen to what people have to say, and I appreciate people's opinions, but I also realize you cannot make everybody happy ever. Never. It's just completely impossible. So I don't try to make everybody happy. I try and just ultimately, I think my fans, or the fans, they want to see a genuine person. They want to see an artist who is being true to themselves, true to their music. And, as a result of that, my music's taken me in a lot of different directions, from like traditional blues projects to contemporary to really more rock leaning projects, and kind of everything in between. And, some of those records, like some, some fans like certain albums better than they like other albums, but I do think that they respect and appreciate that they see me not just like allowing myself to be put in a box, that I'm still striving to do new and different things, and that I'm following the inspiration wherever that leads me. And I think that they appreciate that. And so, um, but yeah, if I was trying to find the formula to try and make everybody happy all the time, that's another losing battle. And then I probably would have my creativity confined into a very small space of parameters, musical parameters, that I was too scared to step out of because I might lose somebody here or there.
I think it's really this is interesting. The idea of being true to yourself and how that ties into sort of like a specific sound or like a specific feeling. I mean, what is it? Sorry, this is an incredibly abstract question. I don't even know if this is answerable. So let me know if it isn't. But like, what does it mean to be, in a sense, being true to yourself at a certain point in your life means putting out a rock record or means putting out like a blues record?
I think it just mean well, I think you just genuinely have to follow the inspiration. Like, there's a balance with everything. And yes, like you can't alienate the people who have gotten you to where you're at. But I do feel like some people might go, why would you make a record like that? You're a blues artist, I want to hear you play blues. And it's like, okay, that's great. I'm glad to play blues, and I've done that on a lot of different records, but like this record in this moment, this is what I felt like. This is the direction that I felt inspired to take. And I had to see that through. And I know I have the benefit of knowing that I'm also working on another record that's taking a different turn, it's like, and so that's coming after this. So I got to get this out of my system because like I have something to say here. I have something to create, and it needs to go out there. And then I'll get around to, whatever the next thing is. And it's not going to be the same thing that this thing is. It's like every record I think is its own body of work for me. So I don't know. I feel like that's just what you do. But there is a little bit of a balancing act that happens because you don't want to go so far in one direction that you just completely lose everybody. So there's often times where I've felt compelled to like create music and write things and record things and just put them out under an alias so that nobody even knows that it's me, because it might be so far outside of what people would expect from me.
Your Chris Gaines record?
Whatever. I don't want to do that, but I mean, I don't have the tour behind it. Just create it and put it out there so that it sees life, because it's back here and it's like gnawing at me, and it's like it wants to have its moment.
I gotta ask, just as an aside, like, what's the furthest out? Like, what's the one thing that you feel like really would need an alias?
Oh, I don't know, man. Like, there's just certain like, and it's not really outside crazy stuff, but like, for example, like I grew up in the era of the birth of hip hop, and so I grew up listening to a lot of rap and stuff, and so I don't never wanted to be a rapper. I don't want to rap. Yeah, I want to play music like what I do, but there are elements of that music. There are some elements in a certain era of it that I really kind of did, and that I think rap is a descendant of blues, so like they're connected. So musically, I think there's some cool opportunities there. I think some of my fans, if I put out a song that had a bunch of rapping in it or something, it might be a little bit much for them, not because they don't appreciate rap, but because it's like, it's kind of, I mean, on the most recent records that I did, Dirt on My Diamonds, Volume 1 and 2, there's a song called Sweet and Low, and then it has a very hip hop inspired groove. And we even did like a record scratching sound that's in there. And some of my fans were like, what is that sound? Like, and it's like, I can tell that they're a few years older than me because they don't know what that sound is. But like, it even just putting that effect in there got elicit. There was a response to that by some people. Like, what is that noise? But it's me just experimenting with all the different sounds that I grew up listening to. So that's one example that maybe could be too far, but I still feel compelled to want to go do it. And so I got my own recording studio. So now there's no limitations as to what I can do. There might be limitations as to what I can release as Kenny Wayne Shepherd, but there's no limitations as to what I could go in there and record and create because I have a studio at my disposal now.
You have a studio at your disposal. There's like no limitation on tape. You said something earlier. You were talking about not being too attached to your own ideas, and you were talking about that like specifically in reference to your career. But I think that that also applies to the creative aspect thing of things and being open to others when it comes to creative input, and something that like I suspect that that has played a big part in your career and that you've really had to be open to is especially when it comes to interacting with like these legends. I mean, you played with Stephen Stills, for example, is really knowing when to listen and,
Mhm.
and knowing when to sort of like take advice and, much like reading your grandmother's poetry, like knowing when to be a sponge.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's knowing, it's just being one, in general. I just always have maintained the idea that I grew up as a kid. This may not be answering your question or speaking to your point, but it's like most of my life, and now I'm in a transition phase because I'm getting older, right? So now I'm starting to work with people younger than me. But like the majority of my life, I was always the youngest person in the room. I was always working with people far older than me. And and I also, for some reason, found myself around people who like to talk a lot. So I spent a lot of time listening. And I spent a lot of time as a result of listening. I learned a lot. I absorbed a lot. And I just realized like there's something to be said for like just being willing to listen and being willing to take in information. It doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but like you can process that and then do with it what you will. But for me, I just took it all in, whether it was watching people perform at concerts or listening to people at the dinner tables, like when my dad would go out with these record industry people and how they're talking about the business, or my grandmother watching her write her poetry, and just all of these things, just soaking them up. And then I've done with that what I chose to do with it, and that's enabled me. But I think I still believe that I'm very much a teachable person. I'm convicted in my beliefs and in my abilities and the things that I have learned through my experience and throughout my life that I believe to be facts. Uh, but I still remain wide open to being able to learn new things and to not always having the answers.
What is that sort of transition like? Like, what is it like now sometimes being the elder in the
Well,
room?
it's a trip, dude. I mean, it's another thing where it's a reminder of like, oh yeah, I'm not the youngest guy anymore. I'm not, it's like so much was made about the child prodigy, 16-year-old, 17-year-old, 18-year-old, 19-year-old Kenny Wayne. I mean, it's great when you get to start that early. I'm so far ahead of the game, like, than a lot of people because I got such an early start. But like for years and years and years, even when you're 25 years old or whatever, it's like it wasn't until I hit like 30 years old. And then they're like, wow, you're 30 years old, but you look so young. So it's still like I'm young. And now it's like I'm 48, I'm almost 50 years old. It's like there's a transition happening now where it's like I'm not the youngest guy in the room anymore. And if I try and stay the youngest guy in the room, then I'm going to be surrounding myself with people who you might not have the energy necessary to do what we need to do. So, yeah, sooner or later, the good news is that I've lived long enough to experience this transition where I get to go from being the young gun to being the elder statesman, if you will. And I'm seeing the next generation of people coming up, young men and young ladies, like in our genre, that are doing great things and making a name for themselves and having an impact. And so I see a lot of myself in those people, and it brings back a lot of memories. And so I know it. I kind of feel like I can relate to their experience, and so I make myself available however I can to those people.
Obviously, like you hear a lot of like horror stories from people who started out in an early age, but it sounds like for you, like especially in hindsight, like starting like having success at an early age has been kind of an overwhelmingly positive experience.
Well, I think having success at an early age has been a great experience for me. As I've gotten older, I realize just how unusual it is. I mean, I have my own kids now. I have 6 kids. And so, my oldest child is about to go to college next year. And, I have 3 teenagers, about to have a fourth teenager. And And I look at them and I go, okay, man, like when I was this age, this was what was happening in my life. But
It's hard to know when you're in it.
yeah, well, no, because that's just my life. That's just that's the experience that I'm having. So it's, you don't, you literally don't know any different. So it just seems normal in that regard. But time and perspective has given me the ability to go, wow, that was absolutely unusual. It's not normal. And I've relayed that to my kids because I want them to know, like, they can do whatever they want. Like, if they want to follow music, that's great. If they don't, that's great. But just because I signed a record deal at 16 and maybe you're 17 and that hasn't happened for you, it does not have any bearing whatsoever on you, your experience, who you are, your self-worth, or anything, because this is not normal, and we should all be able to acknowledge that.
30 plus years on, do you feel like you're still, you still have the sort of occasional like surreal experience that like it's wild that I'm having this experience, that I'm still able to get to do this, that I'm meeting this person or playing with this person?
Yeah, things still are. There's still a level of excitement to what
Yeah,
I do. Yeah, otherwise I wouldn't still be doing it,
sure.
Um, because I believe that I'm pretty determined person. So if I put my mind to it and I decided I wasn't going to do this anymore, but I was going to do that, I feel like I would see it through just with the same conviction that I've done with my music. So, but it's still incredibly rewarding and incredibly gratifying. And there's still a level of excitement. And like, I mean, here's the thing. We're like athletes and people like that. Like we get to play for work,
Literally, yeah. Play, yeah.
like kids play, like
Yeah.
we're playing on stage. So like, that's incredible. And, so every night, like there's a new experience and like we might reach a different height or we might accomplish a different, like something spontaneous might happen and everybody's like, oh my gosh, you remember, like, did you hear when he did that? And whatever. And it's like, it's still incredibly exciting and rewarding. And so, like I said, like with the studio and then my age that I'm at now and where I'm at in my career, I'm also transitioning into a phase where I'm looking to also help other artists accomplish things and then watch them get to have, and maybe help facilitate for them accomplishing their goals and their musical vision and stuff like that. So yeah, it's incredibly rewarding and still very exciting. And, getting to play with new people or whatever. I mean, that's always great.